Well, do violent video games cause violence?
Underlying fear expressed by parents during public hearings that video games lead to violence.
Are they going to become violent just by playing Grand Auto Theft and Halo and these games?
These video games, to me, are murder simulators, is what they are.
He was trained to kill with Call of Duty and other video games.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
What's up, gamers, or non-gamers? We have a lot to talk about today. The first thing I want to talk about is the question of whether or not violent video games actually lead to people being more aggressive or violent. No. Obviously, I'm just kidding. There's tons of research to actually discuss and go into in regards to that very topic of how video games affect society and whether or not they negatively affect people. Some of the things that I want to talk about today are the violence in video games and video game addiction. I myself am a gamer, so most of this footage that you're going to see is from gameplay that I've recorded of me playing. I'm sorry in advance. So yeah, let's just take a look at a timeline of some major events in gaming, if you will. Major events in gaming, if you will. That's probably what I sound like. By the way, this is the website where I'm going to be getting most of my information from, at least in terms of finding like what topics to go into, specific events that occurred, and the dates that they occurred. I am going to be doing further research into it. In 1976, the first controversial video game, Death Race, was pulled off of store shelves. The objective of the game was to earn points by running over as many gremlins as possible with a given time frame. According to video game historian Steve L. Kent, what got everyone upset about Death Race was that you heard this little when the person got hit and a little gravestone came up. Public outcry is what led to the game being pulled off store shelves. Apparently, a little pixelized character going and then dying was too much for people. But oh, trust me, I mean, everybody already knows video games are much worse nowadays. But we'll get there. Fast forward a little bit to 1998, where we see the release of Grand Theft Auto. The main objective of Grand Theft Auto is to shoot people, deal drugs, and drive fast cars. And when the game first came out, obviously that was a very controversial game to play. Here's what some footage of the newest version of GTA looks like.
You calling for some wheels? I'm Johnny on the spot. I'll hook you up.
Oh, come on, it's down here. Oh, shoot. I just erased that guy from the face of the earth. Whoa! Being Batman is not easy, bro. Fast forward again to 1999, when the video game panic kind of reached its peak due to the Columbine shootings. On April 20th, 1999, two shooters opened fire at Columbine High School in Columbine, Colorado. A lot of people started coming up with stories that they were bullied or that they were mentally ill, and while no one is denying that, one of the biggest things that people sort of latched onto was video games, because it was revealed that the shooters were fans of violent video games, specifically the game Doom. Families of victims of the shooting had even opened lawsuits against entertainment companies and video game makers who promoted violence in their work. It really started then, but video games have always had a sort of history of controversy. I mean, the basic concept of Death Run, the game I mentioned at the beginning, was under fire for being too violent. Obviously, by the time the Columbine shooting came around and Grand Theft Auto came out, graphics had improved, things were looking more realistic, and I think that's where a lot of people kind of find the problem, is that it's not just violent, it's realistic violence, but in a virtual world. In a study by these people, they did not actually find any real evidence that violent video games or video games in general cause any kind of aggression or violence. Now, I'm going to have more information linked down below to this specific article, but to sum things up, basically they had participants play Grand Theft Auto, The Sims, or no video games. They had different control groups, whatever, to all see which video games impacted them the most, which ones made them violent, which ones didn't. And according to the article, they really didn't see any notable changes in people's behavior after playing these games for 2 months. But we need to see some of the other sides of things. What kind of negative impact has gaming had? Like video game addiction. Addiction, to sum it up as simply as I can, is just a reward system. You do something, your brain releases dopamine, it likes it, your brain likes it, your brain wants more of it, your brain gets it, your brain wants more, your brain gets it. You get it. That's basically addiction. Video games are essentially a digital drug that you have unlimited access to through your phone. Even if you don't have an Xbox or a Switch. In order for someone to really be considered a game addict, it doesn't really just mean you're playing video games a lot, okay? Because I play video games a lot. I might be an addict, so I don't know if that's a good example, but in order to be considered a gaming addict or to be addicted to video games, you need to have video games take precedence over other more important things in your life. Like homework, for example. I'm recording this video the day before it's due. What was I doing all weekend? This. Now, I'm looking at this article here, and I just said I played video games a lot over the weekend, and I did. I stayed up until like 2 a.m. on Saturday, losing control over how much time spent gaming. I'm assuming they mean like you don't really acknowledge or know how much time you've spent gaming, because it came to be like 2 a.m., and I like yawned once. I'm like, oh shoot, what time is it? Oh, it's 2 a.m. Now, there's lots of ways to get treatment for video game addiction, or really any kind of addiction. Here's a phone number that I found on that site that I was just getting that information from. But there's all kinds of cognitive behavioral therapy, all kinds of like support groups that you can join to help. Like video game addiction is a big deal, guys. Okay, it's not like a small thing, like, oh, he's an addict. Well said, Nathan. Well said. But as video games are constantly evolving and changing, so will the research and the conclusions that people come to. So right now, today, based on what I looked at online and have done the research for, I can say, at least for me, I think video games have a neutral impact. They're not good, they're not bad, they're kind of just a thing. And if you abuse them, well, that's how all addictions start.